How's it going, Dopamon fans? We're only halfway through the NHL offseason, but with training camps underway, things are starting to heat up as teams try to fill the holes in the roster before it's too late. And with free agent Nazem Kadri now signed and off to Calgary, there's no bigger story right now than Jakob Chychrun rumored to go to Ottawa. It's been no secret that Arizona has been trying to trade Chychrun for months, but it's only really been since Ottawa's off-season moves that they've become a serious contender for a trade, especially considering that Chychrun's family home is only 30 minutes from Ottawa. Chychrun, 24 years old, was drafted 16th overall in 2016 by Arizona and has slowly grown into their number one defenseman over the past 6 seasons, seeing a consistent increase in ice time. He's defensively reliable, has offensive skills, and while he doesn't lead any category in particular, he's still young and hasn't quite hit his prime, so the potential's there to achieve even higher than he already has. And don't forget 2 seasons ago when he was top 10 in Norris voting. But what makes Chychrun most valuable is the contract he's signed to. 3 more years at $4.6 million is a very reasonable cap hit for a top 4 defenseman, and is among the best value contracts in the entire league. In Ottawa's case, that's an almost identical cap hit to Nikita Zaitsev, who's often been linked to the trade as it would clear up essential cap space. This increases Chychrun's value significantly, and makes it harder to compare the trade Ottawa made for Alex DeBrincat, for example. With DeBrincat, he's only got 1 year left and hasn't re-signed, while Chychrun has 3 more years on a very team-friendly contract. So while DeBrincat was traded for a first, second, and third, I think that the asking price could be very different with Chychrun. And let's talk about that asking price, because it has changed a little bit. Around the trade deadline, the reported asking price was much lower, but that was likely to drive up interest and start a bidding war, which seems to have happened. Now, according to Sean Simpson, the asking price is similar to that of Seth Jones. This is crazy, and I think he's trying to stir the pot a little bit. A reminder that Jones was traded along with a first for 2 firsts, a second, and Adam Boqvist. While Chicago anticipated better results when they made the trade, it certainly looks like the trade leans in favor of Columbus now, as Jones hasn't played up to the contract he signed, while those draft picks were high, and Boqvist looks to be a solid addition for Columbus. But this is a good warning sign for Ottawa. If they give up what seems to be a fair deal now, they run the risk of having a poor season while the assets they gave up look more valuable. This trade threw a monkey wrench into Chicago's plan to retool, and is essentially the reason they have to go through a bigger rebuild now. So Ottawa, now trying to pull out of their own rebuild, has to be cautious with the moves they make. Now from Brent Wallace. For a more realistic market value, he states that Arizona is looking for 2 first-round picks and a top prospect for Arizona to also take Zaitsev. In Ottawa's case, they have about $8 million in cap space going into the season, which would be enough to put Chychrun on the roster without giving up an additional asset to get rid of Zaitsev. But they also have to re-sign RFAs Alex Formenton and Erik Brannstrom if they aren't part of the Chychrun deal. In the case of signing both RFAs and adding Chychrun, this would put them at or slightly above the cap ceiling. So, moving Zaitsev's contract would give them nice wiggle room at the top of the cap ceiling there to maybe make some small roster changes mid-season or deal with some injuries. Ottawa also has to think about re-signing both Alex DeBrincat and Tim Stützle next offseason. That second year, the last remaining year on Zaitsev's contract, would be the first for both, and freeing up that space is essential. As well, assuming Erik Brannstrom re-signs, Ottawa will simply have too many NHL defensemen. On the left side, they currently have Thomas Chabot, Jake Sanderson, Erik Brannstrom, Nick Holden, and recently signed Jacob Larson. And on the right side, they have Travis Hamonic, Artem Zub, 2 big-name prospects in Jacob Bernard-Docker and Lassie Thompson, and then finally Nikita Zaitsev. So they need to move Zaitsev not only to sign younger and better talent, but also for that young talent to even get a chance to play on the right side. So now I have my trade proposals, one without Zaitsev and one with. I think Zaitsev will be a part of this deal. While it's possible that Ottawa finds another trade partner, it just makes the most sense for Ottawa to do this all in one deal. So, the first one here, in my head, a first, second, and third is really the cost for Chychrun. There's lots of good value there in the return in a very deep draft, and Ottawa isn't giving up any of their current prospects. For Arizona, I don't know what their exact rebuild plan is, but so far it's been to accumulate draft picks instead of prospects. So I think that only getting picks here is okay. Now, they do have 11 second-round picks in 2024 and 2025, and only their own first-round picks going forward, which is simply just weird to have this many picks. So eventually, they're going to have to trade some of those seconds either up in the draft or for roster players to build a team around them again, but for now, I think they're still just going to accumulate picks. But since I think that Zaitsev will be part of the deal, this first, second, third is really just so I can determine Chychrun's value and then move on to my second proposal. And it's very similar to my first. I tried my best to be reasonable and objective, and I'll explain a little bit my reasoning after, but do remember I am a Sens fan. For the addition of Zaitsev at full cost, I propose that the second round pick be upgraded, so there's 2 firsts, as well as adding a young prospect or two like Zach Ostapchuk, a center who's showing lots of promise for Canada at the World Juniors right now, and Philip Nordberg, a second round pick in 2022 who's just a big left shot D. I see both as mid-tier prospects. Everywhere online, I'm seeing asks for Ridley Gregg, Jacob Bernard Docker, Lassie Thompson. While I think that Bernard Docker and Thompson are closer to being NHL ready than Ridley Gregg is, all 3, I believe, are essential to Ottawa's future core. While not completely untouchable, they're likely not going to be moved unless Ottawa needs to add Chychrun, which they really don't. With so many D, it's possible that Ottawa doesn't pull the trigger at all. So I think they're going to make a deal that works, that still gives Arizona value, while still keeping the specific pieces that they want to remain in their system so that they can be competitive long term. And on that value, I want to refer to some other cap dumps that Arizona has been the recipient of. Zach Kassian's $3.2 million for 2 years, which cost a second, third, and going down 3 draft spots. Anton Strawman's $5.5 million for 1 year, which cost a young prospect. Shane Gostisbehere's $4.5 million for 2 years, which is the same as Zaitsev's, which cost a second. And Andrew Ladd's $5.5 million for 2 years, which cost a second and a third. I know comparing to Gostisbehere, same cap hit, I know Gostisbehere is a little bit more productive offensively, but it's just a good comparison. I think that what I added to the value compensates enough for Zaitsev's negative trade value. I think that's fair compared to these other cap dumps that Arizona's made. And finally, as a Sens fan, I just appreciate Pierre Dorion's patience. He's been making really good moves at the right time this offseason, but the longer he stalls here, the more fitting deal I think Ottawa will get. If it were just as simple as 2 first-round picks and buy, Chychrun would have been traded already. I know Arizona wants to get the best deal as well, but I think that Dorion could have been looped into overpaying and then jumping the gun on a trade, which he's avoided. I like Chychrun, I see the value in him, but I also don't want to see Ottawa give up top prospects for him and potentially ruin their rebuild for a defenseman that they might not even need. If the Chychrun trade falls through, I'm just as happy with the Ottawa Senators. Their full off season. It's been great, so no complaints if this doesn't happen. And that really concludes everything that I want to say about the topic. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave your trade proposals in the comment section down below, as well as your thoughts on mine. We're Dopamon, my best friend, and I talk hockey news, analysis. We got mock drafts and scouting reports. We got coverage for the World Juniors on the channel right now, and lots more stuff planned as we get ready for the preseason. So leave a like and subscribe to stick around for more dope hockey content. Peace.